My son's wife walked into my bedroom without knocking and started going through my jewelry box. I was taking a nap, woke up to her shoving my rings and necklaces into her purse. "What are you doing?" I asked, groggy. She jumped. "Oh, you're awake. I'm just borrowing these." For a wedding, she kept taking my jewelry, my late mother's pearls, my wedding ring from my deceased husband. "Put those back," I said. She laughed. "You're not going to need them much longer anyway, right? You're what, 75? These should stay in the family." She zipped up her purse. I sat up. "Those are mine," she patted my hand condescendingly. "You're confused, sweetie. Go back to sleep." She left with everything. I didn't call my son. I called the police. Filed a theft report with photos and documentation of every piece. She was arrested at the wedding, which was actually a pawn shop. She'd planned to sell everything. My son begged me to drop the charges. I said she called me confused and stole from me in my own bed. No, before we continue, this fictionalized case study is based on documented cases of theft from elderly family members. According to the National Council on Aging, family members are responsible for over 90% of elder financial abuse cases, with theft of personal property among the most common forms. This examines how to recognize, document, and prosecute theft even when committed by family members. Now let me tell you my story. I was having a lovely dream about my late husband Robert when I heard the sound of my jewelry box opening. It was a distinctive sound, the wooden lid with its slightly squeaky hinge that Robert had always promised to oil but never got around to. After he died 5 years ago, I kept it that way. The squeak reminded me of him, but it shouldn't have been squeaking at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon while I was taking my nap. I opened my eyes slowly, disoriented and groggy. My bedroom was dim, curtains drawn against the afternoon sun. I was lying on my bed in my comfortable clothes, having settled down for my daily rest after lunch. And standing at my dresser, going through my jewelry box, was my daughter-in-law, Crystal. She had her back to me, but I could see her perfectly. Designer purse open on the dresser beside her. Hands moving quickly through my jewelry, selecting pieces and dropping them into her bag. My mother's pearl necklace, the one she'd worn on her wedding day and passed to me before she died. Into the purse. My wedding ring from Robert, the simple gold band I'd taken off only because arthritis made it uncomfortable. Into the purse. The diamond earrings Robert gave me for our 40th anniversary. Into the purse. My grandmother's gold bracelet. Into the purse. I watched, frozen in confusion and disbelief, as Crystal systematically went through my jewelry box and took piece after piece. "What are you doing?" My voice came out groggy, confused. I was still half asleep, trying to process what I was seeing. Crystal jumped, startled. She spun around, one hand clutching my mother's pearls. "Oh, you're awake." She recovered quickly, putting on a bright smile. "I'm just borrowing these for a wedding this weekend." She turned back to the jewelry box and kept taking things, didn't stop, didn't put anything back. "What wedding?" I sat up slowly, my mind clearing. "Whose wedding?" "A friend's. You don't know her." Crystal picked up a sapphire ring, a gift from Robert on our 25th anniversary. "I need to look nice. Put those back." My voice was stronger now, fully awake. "Those are mine," Crystal laughed, actually laughed. "You're not going to need them much longer anyway, right? You're what, 75? She zipped her designer purse shut, my jewelry inside it. "These should stay in the family. Better I have them now than wait for me to die." That's what she meant. I swung my legs off the bed, standing up. "Those pieces are mine. Put them back. Now." Crystal walked toward the bedroom door, purse clutched to her chest. "You're confused, sweetie." She patted my hand as she passed, her voice condescending like she was talking to a child. "Go back to sleep. I'll bring them back after the wedding." Crystal, but she was already walking out. I heard her heels clicking down the hallway, heard the front door open and close. She was gone, with my mother's pearls, my wedding ring, my grandmother's bracelet, everything. I stood in my bedroom, staring at my open jewelry box, and felt something I'd never felt toward Crystal before. Not anger, not hurt, cold, absolute clarity. She'd just stolen from me, in my own home, while I was sleeping in my own bed, and she'd called me confused when I caught her. I walked to my jewelry box and looked inside. At least 15 pieces were gone. Thousands of dollars in value. Decades of memories. Irreplaceable items from people I loved who were gone, all taken by a woman who thought I wouldn't need them much longer anyway. My first instinct was to call my son Marcus, Crystal's husband, my son who I loved and who loved me, but I stopped, hand on the phone, because I knew what would happen if I called Marcus. He'd defend her. She said she was borrowing them, Mom. She'll bring them back. He'd minimize it. It's not that big a deal. She probably just wanted to look nice. He'd make me the problem. Why are you being so difficult? It's just jewelry. Marcus had always defended Crystal, always taken her side, always made excuses for behavior that shouldn't need excuses, not this time. I put down the phone and walked to my desk, opened the drawer where I kept my important documents, pulled out a folder labeled Household Inventory. Inside were photographs of every valuable item in my house. I'd taken them after Robert died on the advice of my insurance agent. Photos of jewelry, furniture, art, silver, everything worth more than a few $100s. Each photo was dated and labeled. Description of the item, where it came from, approximate value. There was my mother's pearl necklace. Photo from 2019. Pearl necklace inherited from Mother Catherine Ross, deceased 2010. Estimated value $2,000. My wedding ring. Gold wedding band Robert Coleman, married 1968. Sentimental value incalculable. The diamond earrings. Diamond earrings, gift from Robert Coleman, 40th anniversary, 2008. Appraised value $3,500. Every piece Crystal had taken was documented, photographed, proven to be mine. I also had the appraisal documents from when I'd had everything valued for insurance purposes. Original receipts for items Robert had bought, inheritance documentation for my mother's jewelry. Everything Crystal had stolen, I could prove was mine. I picked up the phone, but I didn't call Marcus. I called 911. 911, what's your emergency? I'd like to report a theft. My daughter-in-law just stole approximately $15,000 worth of jewelry from my bedroom. Is she still at your location? No, she left about 10 minutes ago. Are you in any danger? No. But I want to file a police report. We'll send officers to take your statement. What's your address? I gave her my address in Baltimore's Bolton Hill neighborhood, the house where Robert and I had raised our children, where I'd lived for 47 years. The house Crystal had just walked into without permission and stolen from. Officers will be there within 20 minutes, ma'am. I hung up and sat down to wait, my folder of documentation in my lap. Crystal thought I was too old, too confused, too passive to do anything about this. She was about to learn otherwise. Officers James Wilson and Patricia Green arrived 18 minutes later. They were both experienced officers in their 40s. Officer Wilson was a black man with kind but serious eyes. Officer Green was a black woman with a no-nonsense demeanor. I let them in and showed them to my living room. Mrs. Coleman, Officer Wilson said gently, you reported a theft. Yes, my daughter-in-law Crystal Coleman came into my house while I was taking my afternoon nap. I woke up to find her going through my jewelry box in my bedroom, taking pieces and putting them in her purse. I kept my voice calm and clear. This was important. I needed them to take me seriously. When I asked what she was doing, she said she was borrowing jewelry for a wedding. When I told her to put everything back, she refused. She told me I wouldn't need the jewelry much longer anyway because I'm 75 years old. Officer Green was taking notes. Did she have permission to be in your house? No, I was asleep. She let herself in. She has a key from when she and my son used to check on the house while I was traveling, but I didn't know she was coming over today. What items did she take? I opened my folder. I have documentation of everything. Photos, descriptions, values, proof of ownership. I laid out the photos on my coffee table. This is my mother's pearl necklace, inherited when she died in 2010. Estimated value $2,000. Here's the inheritance documentation. This is my wedding ring from my late husband, Robert. We were married in 1968. He died in 2019. Sentimental value beyond price, but the gold value is approximately $500. These diamond earrings, 40th anniversary gift from my husband in 2008. professionally appraised at $3,500. Here's the appraisal certificate. I went through each piece, 15 items total, each one photographed, documented, proven to be mine. Officer Wilson looked impressed. This is very thorough documentation, Mrs. Coleman. I photographed everything valuable after my husband died. For insurance purposes, I never imagined I'd need it to prove theft by family. Your daughter-in-law claimed she was borrowing these items? Officer Green asked. That's what she said, but when I told her to return them, she refused. She laughed and said I wouldn't need them much longer. Then she left with everything. Did she say when she'd return them? She said after a wedding this weekend. But she was very dismissive when I asked her to put them back. She patted my hand and told me I was confused and should go back to sleep. Officer Wilson and Officer Green exchanged a look. Mrs. Coleman, did your daughter-in-law have your permission to take these items? Absolutely not. I woke up to her stealing them. She never asked. And when I caught her and told her to return them, she refused. Officer Green closed her notepad. That's theft, ma'am. Even if she claims she was borrowing, the moment you told her to return the items and she refused, it became theft. I'd like to press charges. We'll file a report and open an investigation. Do you have contact information for your daughter-in-law? I gave them Crystal's phone number and address. The house she shared with my son Marcus and my 2 grandchildren. We'll contact her and see what she says. In the meantime, we're documenting everything you've told us. Your documentation is excellent. It'll be very helpful if this goes to court. After they left, I sat in my living room and thought about what came next. Marcus would be angry. Crystal would claim I gave her permission. Family would take sides, but I'd done the right thing. You don't steal from a 75-year-old woman in her own bedroom and get away with it, even if you're family. Especially if you're family. The next day, Detective Sarah Martinez called me. She was from the Baltimore Police Department's Property Crimes Unit, a Latina woman in her mid-40s with a professional, straightforward manner. Mrs. Coleman, I've been assigned to your case. I reviewed the report from Officers Wilson and Green. Very solid documentation you provided. Thank you, Detective. I contacted your daughter-in-law this morning. She confirms she took the jewelry, but she claims you gave her permission to borrow it. I did not. She says you told her she could borrow jewelry for a wedding this weekend. I was asleep when she came in. I woke up to her taking my things without permission. There was no conversation about borrowing anything. She also claims you've been having memory problems, that you may have forgotten giving her permission. Heat rose in my chest. I do not have memory problems. I'm 75 years old and sharp as ever. She's lying. I believe you, Mrs. Coleman, but I need to investigate thoroughly. Can you tell me, is there actually a wedding this weekend? I have no idea. She said it was a friend's wedding, someone I don't know. But I was never invited, never told about it until she used it as an excuse for stealing my jewelry. I'm going to do some checking. In the meantime, is there anything else you can tell me about your daughter-in-law's behavior lately? I thought about it. She's been very interested in my possessions, asking what certain items are worth, commenting that I have so much stuff that I don't use anymore, making remarks about how things should stay in the family. When did this start? Maybe 6 months ago. At first I thought she was just being conversational, but looking back she seemed to be appraising everything, calculating value. Has she taken anything else? Before this incident, I paused. I'm not sure, I should check. Please do, and Mrs. Coleman. Don't mention this conversation to anyone in your family. Not yet. I want to investigate without anyone being tipped off. After we hung up, I went through my house systematically. My silver serving set, a wedding gift from 1968, usually displayed in the dining room china cabinet. Gone. The antique mantel clock that had belonged to Robert's grandmother. Gone. 2 small paintings from the hallway. Gone. My heart sank as I moved through the house finding empty spaces where treasured items should be. She'd been stealing from me for months. Taking things slowly, probably betting I wouldn't notice right away. But I notice now. I photographed every empty space, checked my documentation folder, found photos of the missing items. The silver service set, appraised at $2,800. The antique clock, valued at $1,500. The paintings, worth $800 each. plus the jewelry from yesterday, approximately $15,000. Total theft, over $21,000. I called Detective Martinez back. Over the next few days, Detective Martinez built her case. She checked social media. Crystal had no posts about any wedding, no RSVPs to wedding events. Nothing. She contacted local wedding venues. No events scheduled for anyone Crystal knew. She called my son Marcus. "Is there a wedding this weekend?" Marcus sounded confused. "No, not that I know of. Why?" "Your wife told your mother she needed to borrow jewelry for a wedding." "I don't know anything about that." Detective Martinez dug deeper into Crystal's background. Financials showed Crystal was in serious debt. $23,000 across multiple credit cards, 3 months behind on her car payment. Their family was struggling financially despite Marcus's good job as an accountant. She pulled Crystal's internet search history with a warrant. Best pawn shops in Baltimore. How much do pawn shops pay for gold jewelry? Selling inherited jewelry. Do pawn shops require ID? Crystal hadn't been planning to wear my jewelry to a wedding. She'd been planning to sell it. Detective Martinez tracked Crystal's phone GPS data for the day of the theft. After leaving my house at 2:15 p.m., Crystal had driven directly to Gold and Silver Exchange pawn shop on Eastern Avenue. She'd been there for 45 minutes. But apparently she hadn't sold anything that day, just researched values, asked questions. She was planning to go back. "Mrs. Coleman," Detective Martinez called me on Friday morning. "I know where your daughter-in-law is going to be this afternoon, and I'm going to be there too." I wasn't there when they arrested Crystal, but Detective Martinez told me everything afterward. Friday afternoon, Crystal drove to Gold and Silver Exchange pawn shop. She walked in carrying a designer bag, looking nervous but determined. Detective Martinez and 2 uniformed officers were waiting outside, watching through the window. Inside, Crystal approached the counter and started pulling out jewelry. My mother's pearls, my wedding ring, the diamond earrings, all of it laid out on the counter. The pawn shop owner, a middle-aged man named Vernon Brooks, examined each piece. "These are nice," he said. "Where'd you get them?" "They are family heirlooms," Crystal said. "Inherited from my grandmother. I hate to sell them, but I need the money." "Lie, they were my heirlooms, not hers." She'd stolen them 4 days ago. Vernon pulled out his loupe and examined the diamonds. "I can give you $8,000 for everything." $8,000. My jewelry worth at least $15,000, and she was going to accept $8,000. "Can you do better?" Crystal asked. "These pieces are worth way more than that. $8,000 is my best offer. Take it or leave it." Crystal hesitated, clearly wanting more money. That's when Detective Martinez walked in with the uniformed officers. "Crystal Coleman?" Crystal spun around, saw the police, and her face went white. What's going on?" "I'm Detective Sarah Martinez, Baltimore Police. You're under arrest for theft and attempted fraud." Crystal grabbed the jewelry, trying to shove it back in her purse. "This is mine. These are my things." "No, they're not. They belong to Barbara Coleman, who reported them stolen 4 days ago. She gave them to me. Then why are you selling them at a pawn shop instead of wearing them to a wedding?" Crystal had no answer. Vernon Brooks stepped back from the counter, hands up. "I didn't know they were stolen." "She said they were inherited from her grandmother." "We know," Detective Martinez said. "You're not in trouble, but we're seizing this jewelry as evidence." She gathered all my jewelry, my mother's pearls, my wedding ring, everything, and placed them carefully in evidence bags. Then she handcuffed Crystal. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Crystal started crying, then screaming. "This is a misunderstanding. My mother-in-law said I could have these. She's old and confused." "She doesn't know what she's saying." Detective Martinez ignored her protests and led her out to the police car. She was booked at the station on charges of theft over $10,000, burglary, and attempted fraud. And I got a phone call from my son Marcus 30 minutes later. "Mom, what did you do?" Marcus's voice was loud, angry in a way I'd rarely heard. "I reported a theft," I said calmly. "You had Crystal arrested, at a pawn shop. She's in jail." "She stole from me. She's in jail because she committed a crime." "She said you gave her permission." "I did not." I woke up to her going through my jewelry box without my knowledge. When I told her to put everything back, she refused. She said it was for a wedding. There is no wedding, Marcus. She was at a pawn shop trying to sell my jewelry. The police caught her in the act. Silence on the other end. I could almost hear him processing. A pawn shop? His voice was quieter now, uncertain. Yes, she was trying to sell my mother's pearls, my wedding ring from your father, everything, for $8,000. Jewelry worth at least $15,000. That doesn't make sense. Why would she? Because she's in debt. $23,000 in credit card debt, behind on her car payment. She needed money and she decided to steal from me. Mom, she's my wife. Can't you just drop the charges? Let her bring the jewelry back? No. What do you mean no? I mean no, Marcus. I will not drop the charges. She stole from me while I was sleeping in my own bed. She called me confused when I caught her. She told me I wouldn't need my jewelry much longer anyway because I'm 75. She didn't mean. She meant every word, and she's been stealing from me for months. What? The silver service set from the dining room, the antique clock from the mantel, 2 paintings from the hallway. All gone, all taken by Crystal over the past few months. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Are you sure? I'm sure. I've documented everything. Photos, values, proof of ownership. She's stolen over $21,000 worth of my property. Mom, please. Crystal made a mistake, but she's sorry. She's not sorry. She's sorry she got caught. She's the mother of my children, and she's a thief who stole from their grandmother. If you press charges, she could go to prison. Good. Maybe she'll learn that stealing has consequences. Mom, Marcus, I love you, but I will not drop these charges. What Crystal did was wrong. It was criminal, and she needs to face the consequences. I hung up while he was still trying to argue. It hurt. My son was angry with me. Defending a woman who'd stolen from his own mother. But I'd done the right thing, and I wasn't backing down. Over the following weeks, as Detective Martinez continued her investigation, my family fell apart. Marcus barely spoke to me. He posted Crystal's bail, $5,000, and brought her home. Crystal immediately started telling everyone who would listen that I was confused and declining, and had given her permission to take the jewelry. Barbara's having memory problems, she told Marcus's brother Thomas. She offered me the jewelry and then forgot about it, but I was ready for that. I scheduled an appointment with Dr. Helen Morrison, a neuropsychologist Detective Martinez recommended. Dr. Morrison evaluated me for 3 hours, memory tests, cognitive function assessments, reasoning problems. At the end, she looked at me with what I thought was respect. Mrs. Coleman, your cognitive function is excellent, well above average for your age group, so I don't have memory problems. Not even slightly. Your memory is sharp, your reasoning is intact, your judgment is sound. You show absolutely no signs of dementia, confusion, or cognitive impairment. She wrote a comprehensive report documenting my perfect mental function. When Crystal's lawyer tried to claim I was confused and unreliable, Detective Martinez sent him Dr. Morrison's evaluation. That argument died immediately. I also gathered more evidence of my competence. Bank statements showing I managed my finances perfectly. Tax returns I'd filed myself for decades. My volunteer schedule at the senior center where I taught computer skills twice a week. I was not a confused old woman who'd given permission and forgotten. I was a sharp, capable woman who'd been systematically robbed by her daughter-in-law. While building the case, Detective Martinez made another discovery that broke my heart. Text messages between Crystal and her friend Shanice going back months. Crystal, girl, Barbara has so much jewelry just sitting in her room. She's 75. Not like she's wearing it anymore. Shanice, you thinking what I'm thinking? Smirking face, Crystal. She won't even notice if a few pieces go missing. Trust me. From 3 months ago, Crystal, I took that silver serving set today. She hasn't even noticed it's gone. Shanice, see, told you. Old people don't pay attention. Crystal, I'm gonna start taking the good stuff. The jewelry, might as well get it now instead of waiting forever for her to die. From 6 weeks ago, Crystal, Marcus's mom is loaded. House paid off, jewelry, savings. Just waiting for her to die so we can inherit. Shanice, how much longer you think? Crystal, who knows, she could live another 20 years. I'm not waiting that long. She's got stuff she doesn't use. I might as well benefit now. Reading those texts, I felt sick. My daughter-in-law had been viewing me as a walking inheritance, counting my assets, planning what she'd take and when, and she'd been stealing from me for months, betting I wouldn't notice. She'd been so wrong. 3 months after Crystal's arrest, I got a visit from my son's brother Thomas and my sister Joyce. They came together, a united front. "Barbara," Joyce started gently, "we need to talk about the situation with Crystal. There's nothing to talk about. She stole from me." "She's being prosecuted." Thomas leaned forward. "Marcus is falling apart. He's barely sleeping. The kids are confused about why Mom's not home. Crystal is home. She made bail. You know what I mean, this whole legal situation. The family is divided. The family is divided because Crystal stole from me and some people think that's okay." Joyce sighed. "Nobody thinks it's okay, but can't you handle this within the family, without involving the police? She stole $21,000 worth of my property." "That's not a family matter, that's a crime." "But she's family," Thomas said. "Can't you give her another chance?" "Why should I?" "Because she's Marcus's wife." "Because she's your grandchildren's mother. And she came into my bedroom while I was sleeping and stole jewelry from my dead mother and my dead husband. She looked me in the eye and told me I wouldn't need it much longer because I'm old. She called me confused. She was wrong to do that. She was criminal. There's a difference." Joyce tried another approach. "What do you want to happen here, Barbara? What's your end game?" "I want Crystal to face consequences for stealing from me. I want justice, even if it means prison, especially if it means prison. She committed a serious crime. She deserves serious consequences." Thomas shook his head. "Marcus might never forgive you. Then Marcus needs to examine why he's defending a woman who stole from his mother instead of supporting his mother who was victimized." After they left, I sat alone in my living room. I knew what they wanted, for me to be the bigger person, to drop the charges, to keep the peace, but I was done being the bigger person. I was done being the easy target. Crystal had stolen from me. She'd face the consequences. 4 months after the arrest, Crystal's trial began. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. They presented the pawn shop security footage showing Crystal trying to sell my jewelry. They played her text messages with Shanice, planning the thefts. They showed her phone records, documenting research about pawn shops. They presented photos of every stolen item alongside my documentation proving ownership. Vernon Brooks from the pawn shop testified. She told me the jewelry was inherited from her grandmother. She was trying to sell it all for $8,000. Detective Martinez testified about finding the other stolen items missing from my house. Barbara's neighbor Gladys testified. I saw Crystal coming and going from Barbara's house multiple times when Barbara wasn't home. I thought it was odd but figured Barbara knew, and I testified. I walked to the witness stand in my best suit, my head high. The prosecutor asked me to explain what happened. I was taking my afternoon nap on Tuesday, September 12th. I woke up to the sound of my jewelry box opening. When I opened my eyes, my daughter-in-law Crystal was going through my jewelry and putting pieces into her purse. She took my mother's pearl necklace, inherited when my mother died. My wedding ring from my late husband Robert. Diamond earrings he gave me for our 40th anniversary. At least 15 pieces total. When I asked what she was doing, she said she was borrowing them for a wedding. When I told her to put them back, she refused. What did she say when you told her to return the items? She laughed. She said I wouldn't need them much longer anyway because I'm 75 years old. She said the jewelry should stay in the family. What happened next? She zipped her purse shut with my jewelry inside. When I told her those items were mine, she patted my hand and told me I was confused. She told me to go back to sleep, then she left. Did you give her permission to take the jewelry? Absolutely not. I woke up to her stealing it. Did she return the items? No, she took them to a pawn shop 4 days later to sell them. Police arrested her there. Crystal's lawyer tried to discredit me during cross-examination. Mrs. Coleman, you're 75 years old. Isn't it possible you gave Crystal permission and simply don't remember? No. How can you be sure? Because I underwent a comprehensive neuropsychological evaluation. Dr. Helen Morrison tested my cognitive function for 3 hours. She found my memory, reasoning, and judgment to be excellent. I have no memory problems whatsoever. The lawyer shifted tactics. Isn't it true that you and Crystal have had a difficult relationship? Our relationship was fine until she started stealing from me. Didn't you tell family members you didn't like Crystal? I never said that. I welcomed her into our family when she married my son. But you're not close with her. I'm not close with people who steal from me, no. The lawyer had nothing else. My documentation, my competency evaluation, and the evidence against Crystal were all too strong. Crystal took the stand in her own defense. It was a disaster. She tried to claim I'd given her permission. Barbara offered to let me borrow jewelry for a wedding. She knew I was going. The prosecutor destroyed her. What wedding? Give me the name of the bride and groom. It was a friend. You wouldn't know her. What friend? Name? I don't remember. You don't remember whose wedding you were supposedly attending. The wedding that justified taking $15,000 in jewelry. It was a while ago. It was supposed to be that weekend, 4 days after you took the jewelry. But there was no wedding, was there? I got confused about the date. You got confused, or there never was a wedding, Crystal stammered, caught in the lie. The prosecutor showed her the pawn shop surveillance. This is you trying to sell Mrs. Coleman's jewelry, isn't it? I was just seeing what it was worth. You told the pawn shop owner these were your grandmother's heirlooms. That was a lie, wasn't it? I misspoke. You lied to commit fraud. And you stole these items from your elderly mother-in-law while she was sleeping. The prosecutor showed the jury the text messages with Shanice. You texted your friend that Mrs. Coleman won't notice if things go missing because she's old. Does that sound like someone who had permission? I was just venting. You texted that you were taking the good stuff instead of waiting forever for her to die. Those are your words, correct? Crystal had no defense. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Theft over $10,000. Burglary, attempted fraud, elder abuse. The sentencing hearing was 3 weeks later. I gave my victim impact statement standing before Judge Raymond Pierce. Your Honor, my daughter-in-law violated my home, my privacy, and my trust. She stole items that can never be replaced, jewelry from my deceased mother, my wedding ring from my late husband Robert. She did this while I was sleeping in my own bedroom. When I woke up and caught her, she didn't apologize. She didn't return my property. She told me I wouldn't need it much longer because I'm old. She called me confused. She then went to a pawn shop to sell everything for cash. This wasn't borrowing. This was calculated theft from an elderly woman who she thought wouldn't fight back. The text messages show she'd been planning this for months, taking items slowly, betting I wouldn't notice. Calling me old and discussing how long she'd have to wait for me to die so she could inherit. I want the maximum sentence. Not for revenge, but to send a clear message that elder abuse has serious consequences, that stealing from elderly family members is not acceptable. That being family doesn't give you the right to take what isn't yours. Crystal's lawyer asked for leniency. Your Honor, Miss Coleman is a mother of 2 young children. She made a terrible mistake, but prison would devastate her family. Judge Pierce was unmoved. Miss Coleman, you committed a calculated, sustained theft against your elderly mother-in-law. You entered her home without permission, stole from her while she was sleeping, and attempted to sell her possessions for your own financial gain. You specifically targeted someone you viewed as vulnerable because of her age. Your text messages show you thought she wouldn't notice because she's old. You violated the trust that should exist in families. You exploited your position as a family member to access her home and steal systematically. The court takes elder abuse very seriously. On the charge of theft over $10,000, 3 years in state prison. On burglary, 2 years to run concurrently. On attempted fraud, 1 year. Concurrent, on elder abuse enhancement, additional penalties as provided by law. Total sentence, 3 years in the Maryland Department of Corrections. Additionally, you will pay full restitution of $21,000 to Mrs. Barbara Coleman for the value of stolen property. You are prohibited from any contact with Mrs. Coleman for 5 years following your release. Crystal started crying. Please, Your Honor, my children need me. Your children needed you to be honest and law-abiding. You chose to be a thief instead. Take her into custody. Bailiffs led Crystal away, still crying. Marcus sat in the courtroom, his face in his hands. I felt no satisfaction, just sadness that it had come to this, but also relief. Crystal would face real consequences. And I would get my mother's pearls back. 2 weeks after sentencing, Marcus came to my house. He looked terrible, exhausted, defeated, older than his 38 years. "Mom, can we talk?" I let him in, made tea. We sat in the living room where he'd grown up. "I'm divorcing Crystal," he said quietly. I didn't say anything, just waited. I can't stay married to someone who stole from my mother, who lied to me, who'd been planning this for months while I was completely oblivious. "I'm sorry, Marcus." "Don't be. You were right about everything." He looked up at me with tears in his eyes. "I defended her. I got angry at you. I took her side when I should have believed my own mother. You were in a difficult position. I was in an easy position. My wife stole from my mother. There's no difficulty in that. I should have supported you immediately. You support me now. That matters." I read her text messages. What she said about you, about waiting for you to die, about you being old and not noticing. He wiped his eyes. How could I not see who she really was? She hid it well. She fooled both of us. What happens to the kids? I'm getting full custody. Crystal will have supervised visitation when she gets out, if she gets out and stays clean. How are they? Confused, angry. They don't understand why their mom is in prison. Do they blame me? Marcus looked at me seriously. No, I told them the truth. Their mother stole from their grandmother. That stealing is wrong and has consequences. They needed to know. We sat in silence for a while. Can I bring them to visit you? Marcus asked. They miss you. Of course, they're always welcome here. Mom, I'm so sorry for defending her, for not believing you. For making you feel like you were wrong for pressing charges. You're forgiven. Family makes mistakes. What matters is how we move forward. 1 year after Crystal's conviction, I was speaking at the Baltimore Senior Center about elder abuse and theft. About 40 people filled the room, elderly residents, some family members, a few social workers. I stood at the front and told my story. My name is Barbara Coleman. 1 year ago, my daughter-in-law came into my bedroom while I was napping and stole my jewelry. When I woke up and caught her, she told me I wouldn't need it much longer because I'm old. She tried to sell everything at a pawn shop. She thought I was too old, too trusting, too passive to do anything about it. She was wrong. I explained what I'd learned. Elder theft by family members is more common than people realize. Adult children in laws. Even grandchildren sometimes view elderly relatives' possessions as theirs already and take things without permission. The warning signs include family members asking what your valuables are worth, comments about you being too old to need certain items, remarks about things staying in the family, unauthorized visits to your home, items going missing over time, pressure to give away possessions. If you experience this, document everything. Take photos of your valuables. Get items appraised. Keep receipts and ownership papers. I had all this documentation, which made prosecuting the theft possible. Don't hesitate to call police if family steals from you. It's still theft, even when committed by relatives. I didn't call my son. I called 911, and I'm glad I did. Protect yourself. Consider a home security system. Don't give house keys to people you don't trust completely. Keep valuable items in safe deposit boxes. And know your rights. You don't have to handle it within the family. You don't have to let it go. Theft is theft, and you have every right to prosecute. After my presentation, an elderly woman approached me. "Mrs. Coleman, my granddaughter keeps asking me what my jewelry is worth. She's taken a few pieces to borrow and never returned them. I didn't want to make a big deal about it, but..." "Make a big deal," I said firmly. "Document what's missing. Tell her to return everything. If she refuses, call the police. Don't wait until more is gone." "But she's family." "So was my daughter-in-law. That didn't give her the right to steal from me." The woman nodded slowly. "You're right, thank you." Another person asked, "How did you get your courage to press charges? Weren't you afraid of what people would say?" I was more afraid of being a victim than of what people thought. Crystal was counting on me being too polite, too accommodating, too worried about family drama to stop her. I decided I was more important than keeping the peace. 18 months after the theft, all my jewelry had been returned to me. Detective Martinez had kept everything as evidence during the trial, but after Crystal's conviction, it was all released back to me. I stood in my bedroom, opening the evidence bags one by one. My mother's pearl necklace. I held it up to the light, remembering her wearing it on her wedding day in 1945. My wedding ring from Robert. I slipped it on my finger. It still didn't fit comfortably because of my arthritis, but I wore it for a moment anyway. The diamond earrings from our 40th anniversary. Robert had saved for months to buy them, every piece returned, every memory preserved. The silver service set was back on display in the dining room, the antique clock ticked on the mantel, the paintings hung in the hallway. My house was whole again, and I was stronger than I'd been before. Marcus visited regularly now with my grandchildren. Our relationship had healed slowly but genuinely. He'd learned hard lessons about defending the wrong person. "You taught me something important, Mom," he told me during one visit. "That being family doesn't excuse bad behavior. That we need to hold people accountable even when it's hard. Good lesson to learn. I'm teaching it to the kids. They ask about Crystal sometimes. I tell them the truth. She made very bad choices and is facing consequences." That's how justice works. 2 years after everything happened, I wore my mother's pearls to church on Sunday. Several people complimented them. "Those are beautiful, Barbara." "Thank you, they were my mother's." Very precious to me. One woman who knew my story said quietly, "I'm glad you got them back." So am I. I touched the pearls at my neck and thought about how close I'd come to losing them forever if I'd called Marcus instead of the police. If I'd handled it within the family, if I'd been too polite, too accommodating, too worried about drama, but I hadn't done any of that. I'd stood up for myself. I'd prosecuted theft. I'd refused to be a victim, and I'd won. I learned 3 critical lessons from what happened. Lessons that might save someone else from family theft. First, I learned the warning signs that family members view your possessions as their inheritance before you're gone, and why you can't ignore those signs. The patterns were there for months before Crystal actually stole my jewelry. She constantly asked what items were worth. "Mom Coleman, what's that necklace appraised at?" She'd pick up pieces and examine them like she was calculating value. She made comments about me being too old to need certain things. "You don't wear jewelry much anymore, right? Makes sense at your age." She talked about items staying in the family as if they already belonged to her. These pearls should stay in the family. Passed down through generations. She had unauthorized access to my home and came and went without my knowledge, as my neighbor testified. And most tellingly, her text messages revealed she was literally counting down until my death so she could inherit. Just waiting for her to die so we can get it, according to the National Council on Aging. These are classic warning signs of family members who view you as a walking inheritance. Constant questions about what your valuables are worth, comments suggesting you're too old to need your possessions, remarks about items staying in the family or being passed down, unauthorized access to your home, small items going missing over time, pressure to give away possessions or distribute them, early discussion of your death as a financial event. If you see these patterns, protect yourself immediately. Document your valuables. Consider changing locks. Don't ignore the warning signs just because they come from family. Second, I learned how to document and protect valuables from family theft and why preparation matters. The only reason I could prosecute Crystal successfully was because I had thorough documentation of everything she stole. After Robert died, my insurance agent suggested I photograph all valuable items in my house. I spent a weekend going through everything: jewelry, silver, art, antiques, and taking clear photos of each piece. I labeled each photo with description of the item, where it came from, purchased, inherited, gifted, approximate value date of the photo. I got professional appraisals for expensive items and kept the certificates. I kept original receipts for items Robert had purchased. I had inheritance documentation for items from my mother. All of this went into a folder that I kept in my desk and copies with my lawyer. When Crystal stole from me, I could prove exactly what was missing exactly what it was worth, and exactly that it belonged to me. Without that documentation, it would have been her word against mine. Here's how to protect yourself: photograph all valuable items. Clear photos showing details. Date and label each one. Get professional appraisals for expensive pieces. Update them every few years. Keep receipts, certificates of authenticity, and purchase records. Document the history of inherited items. Who gave them to you, when, and why. Store this documentation somewhere secure, not just in your house where it could be stolen or destroyed. Consider a home security system with cameras. If someone enters your home without permission, you'll have proof. Keep truly valuable items in a safe deposit box if you're concerned about theft. Change locks if you've given keys to people you no longer trust. Create a will that explicitly states who gets what, so there's no ambiguity. Prevention is easier than prosecution. Document everything before it's stolen. Third, I learned your legal right to prosecute theft by family members and why you shouldn't hesitate to use that right. When Crystal stole from me, my first instinct was to call Marcus and handle it within the family. But I stopped myself and called the police instead. Best decision I made. Here's what I learned about the law: theft is theft, regardless of the relationship. Family members don't get special permission to steal just because they're related to you. Borrowing without permission is still theft. Crystal claimed she was borrowing my jewelry, but borrowing requires permission. Taking things without asking is stealing. When you tell someone to return your property and they refuse, that's definitely theft. I told Crystal to put my jewelry back. She refused and left with it. That's textbook theft. Elder abuse enhancements make penalties more serious. Because Crystal stole from me specifically because I'm elderly, her text said I wouldn't notice because I'm old, she faced enhanced penalties. You have every legal right to press charges against family members. Some people told me I should drop the charges or work it out privately. But I had no legal obligation to do that. I was the victim of a crime, and I had every right to prosecute. You don't need permission from other family members to press charges. Marcus wanted me to drop the charges. Other relatives pressured me, but it was my decision, not theirs. Criminal prosecution is separate from family relationships. People acted like prosecuting Crystal meant I was destroying the family. But Crystal destroyed trust when she stole from me. I was simply seeking justice. The burden of proof is on the prosecution, but solid documentation makes cases strong. My photos, appraisals, and ownership papers made the case easy to prove. If you're victimized by family theft, call the police immediately. File a report the same day if possible. Provide all documentation you have. Photos, receipts, appraisals, ownership papers. Don't let family pressure you to drop charges. It's your decision, not theirs. Don't feel guilty for prosecuting. The person who stole should feel guilty, not you. Understand that handling it within the family often means the victim gets nothing back and the thief faces no consequences. Know that civil court suing to get items back and criminal court prosecuting the theft are separate. You can do both. Consider getting a restraining order if you fear retaliation. Remember that justice isn't about revenge, it's about accountability. For comprehensive resources about elder abuse, theft by family members, and legal protections, see the information below. Choose documentation over trust. Choose prosecution over keeping the peace. Choose justice over family pressure. Because I'm standing here today, wearing my mother's pearls, only because I refused to be a silent victim. Because I documented everything. Because I called the police instead of hoping family would work it out. Crystal thought I was too old, too trusting, too polite to fight back. She spent 3 years in prison learning how wrong she was. I'm Barbara Coleman. I'm 77 years old now. And I'm teaching other seniors that being elderly doesn't mean being powerless. Family doesn't get a free pass to steal from you. Theft is theft, and we have every right to demand justice. Thank you for listening. If this helps even one person stand up to family theft, then sharing my story was worth it.